Hello friends, Chris here, CaribbeanPot.com. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we're doing something with, well, I guess in Jamaica they call it Jamaican Callaloo. On the other islands it's known as spinach. I know in Trinidad and Tobago it's known as chorai baji or baji. And here we go. It's all done now. It's cooked down with some coconut milk, some green banana, all kind of lovely things in there, and you can't forget the pieces of salted cod. So today what we're making is Jamaican Callaloo with salted cod steamed down with some coconut milk and green bananas. So here we go. If it's your first time here watching me on YouTube, above click subscribe. You're gonna get all the latest videos sent to you as soon as they get published. Below is where you're gonna leave me your questions, comments, concerns, anything you want to chat about, leave it down there. And don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. So here we go, a wicked lunch meal. This here is the other ingredient we'll be using today, and this is known as Jamaican Callaloo. On the other islands they're sometimes called spinach, or I know, well, for instance in Trinidad and Tobago it's also called chorai baji. So here we go. I'm going to show you guys. Well, I thought I'd bring you guys outside to see how it grows. And if you look over here, and this is a planter that I made a while back. Over here, all this area here that you see all short and stumpy, I'm not sure if you can see the stems all cut away here. My mom was down about a week ago I think it was, and she harvested some of this. The more you cut it back, the more it's going to keep growing. So it's one of those things you want to trim, use, and then it's just going to keep growing. So here we go. All I'm going to use is a sharp paring knife. I'm going to trim this back. Nice beautiful leaves, lovely tender stems and everything. These are going to be delicious once we cook it up with those green bananas and those pieces of salted codfish. So I'm going to go ahead, trim these back. I just thought I'd show you guys where they come from and how they're grown. So here it is, all trimmed. I've got a nice big bundle. See those nice tender stems and everything. A nice big bundle of this callaloo, or as I said, chorai baji or spinach. And this is where it came from. You'll see all those stems there that I trimmed it back with. That's all gonna grow. So maybe in a week or two I'll have another bunch to reap here again. Here's how we're gonna trim each one of these stems of the callaloo here. And what you want to do first thing is to pull back all of these leaves, because this is basically, these are all nice and tender stems, so they're good to go. I'm just gonna pull back on these. On the very top here you're gonna see what look like flowers. That's where the seed develops. What you want to do is pinch that off and discard that. Then we're gonna break all these tender stems back, all these leaves. I'm gonna give this a good wash, because that's the whole idea, is to wash this. Now with the stems itself, you can certainly use the stems as well, and I like using it because again they're pretty tender, and all I'm gonna do is peel back on them as far as they would go and discard the sort of peel. It's just going to be woody, kind of sort of very tough if you don't pull this back and discard it. So I'm just going to go ahead, prepare the rest of it, wash it, and I'll show you how to chop it up and get it fully prepped for cooking. It's all nice and trimmed now away from the big stems that I showed you earlier. And I did save some of those stems. I did peel it back so they're ready to go. What you need to do now is soak this in a sink full of water to really get any sort of grit or dirt out of it. Give it a good rinse and then drain it in a drainer so you get most, or if not all, of that water away from it. And then we're good to go to chopping it up. Over here, as you can see, these are all the peels and everything else that I got from the stems. That I'm going to discard. If you really want to stretch this to go a lot further, you can use all of these stems here that I'm obviously not using, but again, it's up to you, it's your choice. Next step, we've got to chop these all up, the leaves that we trimmed and washed, and all I'm doing is laying them out on my cutting board here. I want to get a nice bunch going. So you have a nice bunch, you just want to tuck it in, roll it. And all you're doing is chopping maybe about 1/4 of an inch or so. So pretty much you have like long shreds of it. Just gonna push that aside for a second and show you guys. With the stems, you want to go a little bit finer with the chop. Let's see if we can quickly run through the ingredients we'll be using today. Fresh out of my garden, thyme. Love the scent of thyme. 2-3 sprays of that fresh thyme. 3 cloves of garlic. 2 scallions. You may call it spring onions or green onions. I've got here a medium-sized tomato. Fairly large onion. Caribbean Sunshine, 1 scotch bonnet pepper. I'm going to be using the entire thing. But again, you can control the heat according to how much heat you like by how much you use. I will also share a tip with you shortly on how to get the full heat out of that pepper, the full flavor out of the pepper without as much of the heat. Up front here, I've got some boned salted cod. Once I prepare this, and I'm going to show you guys how to prepare this because we've got to boil it to get some of that salt out of there because it's really, really salty. You can see the grains of salt on there. And this is special thanks to the guys at Chelsea for providing. Hey, they're always helping me out here with these salted cod, right? Once it's all processed and broken down into bits, it's going to be about 1 to 1.5 cups of that salted cod. You can add more if that's your thing. Over here, I've got 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil, about 1 cup of coconut milk, 5 green cooking bananas. Let me just raise that up a little bit so you can see it. Cooking bananas, look for cooking bananas or cooking fig or green bananas. That's the one you want to look for in your store. And above, all the way up here, this is the chopped up callaloo we'll be using. It's anywhere from about 10 to 12 cups of that, all chopped up, washed, prepped, ready to go. So here we go. Let's go step by step on how to put together this delicious meal. First up, the salted cod. What we've got to do, we've got to boil most of that salt out of the salted cod. So in a deep pan, I've put the salted cod maybe about 1 inch or 2 above it as far as the level of water goes. I'm going to bring that up to a boil and let that go on a rolling boil for about 15-20 minutes to really suck out all of that salt in there. Typically, and now this depends on the type of salted cod or salted fish you're using. Typically, in the Caribbean, we tend to soak the salted fish overnight, toss that water out, and then put it in fresh water and boil it, and then drain it and rinse it out. But in my case here, this fish that I'm using is not as salted as some of the other brands that we get down in the Caribbean. So I'm going to bring this up to a boil and then we're going to let that simmer away for about 20 minutes or so. There are a couple ways to prep this green bananas for, well, we've got to boil it first to make sure it's cooked before we add it to the main dish. There are a couple ways to boil this, but I'm going to show you guys the simplest method. Now, the more difficult method is, first of all, you got to remove them from the stem. We're going to cut the top off, cut the bottom off, so we have a trimmed banana here. And now this is the more labor-intensive way of doing it. Is you would cut a line, maybe about 1/8 of an inch deep, straight along the side of it, and then using your hand, you'll have to peel back on there until you remove the skin. Now that is a bit labor-intensive. So what we're going to do instead is simply, as I have it trimmed here, well, I got to take the label off it, right? I wonder which banana tree has labels on there. Oh well, here we go. I'm just going to put this in water, bring it up to a boil, and boil it for about 20 to 25 minutes. Then we're going to allow it to cool, and it's going to be so much more easier to peel. One thing, guys, if you're doing it the traditional way, as I said, when you score here and you're peeling back with your hands, you want to use some cooking oil, some vegetable oil on your hands before you start doing that. There's a sap, sort of a stain, we call it down in the Caribbean, that comes out of the green bananas, which will be very sticky in your hands. And try not to get it on your clothes. It will stain your clothes. I've trimmed the bananas, and now I have them here in a deep pan covered with water, and I'm going to bring that up to a boil and let that cook for about 20 to 25 minutes. I've gone ahead and I've chopped up the onion, the scallion, the garlic, as well as the fresh thyme, and I'm about to work with the scotch bonnet peppers. Guys, if you're using scotch bonnet peppers, wear gloves if you have sensitive skin, and after handling these, do wash your hands with soap and water. If you want some of the vibe, some of the flavor of this scotch bonnet pepper, but you don't want so much of the heat, and we've discussed this in the past, but I thought I'd still remind you guys, the seeds and that sort of white membrane around the seeds is where most of that heat is. Cut that part out and discard it. That's where all that fire, all that vibe, that live heat is at. So all you got to do is cut that part out and discard it. I'm going to use all of this because I love that heat, I love that pepper, I love the flavor, I love everything about scotch bonnet peppers. And all I'm doing is giving it a fine chop, seeds and everything. Got both the salted cod as well as the green bananas bubbling away. Just wanted to show you guys something here. As the banana cooks, and this is totally natural, don't get freaked out. It will go discolored, it will go dark, it may even go black. That is totally natural. So it's now come up to a boil. I'm going to let that cook for about 20 minutes, and then I'll show you guys how to prep the salted cod as well as these green bananas, well cooked at that point, for adding to the main dish. It's been about 20 minutes now that salted cod has been boiling, so what I'm going to do is drain that water out completely. And I'm going to add some cool water to it and let it sit in there. I just want that to absorb even more salt and to cool down so it's easier for me to handle. The boiled salted cod is now nice and cool. I rinsed it a couple times after boiling it with fresh water every time. So all we're going to do now is sort of flake it with our fingers so we get nice big chunky flakes of salted cod here. Now guys, with this one here, as I said, it's bone, so which means most of that bones have been removed. So, but as with everything else, do keep an eye out. If you do see any bones, you want to remove those because they will go down your throat and cause some problems when you're eating. So you notice the nice flakes that I'm getting here. I'm just going to go ahead and finish that up, and then I'll start assembling the actual recipe. Got a nice deep saucepan here on a medium-high heat. My pot is nice and warm now. So what I'm going to do is add that vegetable oil to the pot. Make sure it all drains in there. And I'm just going to quickly move it around the bottom of this. Since the pot was already warm, what we're going to do is right away add this bits of salted cod to the pot. And you want to cook that for a few minutes on a medium-low heat. It will start to stick to the bottom of the pot. Keep scraping it off with your spoon here. Just keep moving it around. It's been about 4 minutes, and now the edges of the salted cod start to crisp up, and what we're doing here basically is, since this was boiled, we're trying to dry out all that water from the salted cod first of all, and the second thing we're trying to do is really infuse and build that rich salted fish flavor at the bottom of the pan here. So this is exactly where I want it to be now. So all we're going to do is add the onion, garlic, scallion, thyme, everything goes in here now. And I'm going to turn my heat down to low as I mix this up in here, because I want all those flavors as well to join forces and marry and really create that huge flavor base that we're looking for. The onion is going to sweat down, it's going to go nice and soft, almost start to go sweet, and by having that low heat, the garlic will not burn. It's been about 4 minutes since I added all that seasoning and herbs and onions and stuff like that. And one of the things I forgot to mention to you guys, we need some fresh ground black pepper. And that's what I'm doing here, because I want that pepper to toast a little bit with the other ingredients. That's probably about a quarter to about a half a teaspoon. I'm going to give that a quick stir. It will start sticking to the bottom of your pan because we only use 2 tablespoons of oil. Typically, you may need to use a little bit more, but I'm trying to cut back on the amount of oil that I'm using. My pan is good to go now, so what we're going to do is start adding all that cut up callaloo that we prepared earlier. And this is why you need a big pan. This will wilt down, in case if you're wondering. So just keep adding this. As it wilts, keep adding more. The green banana has been cooking now, boiling away for about 20-25 minutes or so. And one of the things I'm going to show you guys here, notice how the skin sort of splits along here. That's an indication that it is boiled as well too. I'm just going to drain it in my colander here and let that cool before we handle it, because it will be very hot. Let's give it about 10-15 minutes as the callaloo cooks. I finally got all the callaloo into the pot here now, so what we're going to do is hit him with that coconut milk. Just going to pour it all the way down, and I'm going to give that a stir, but I just want to get all that coconut milk out of my container here. We're going to stir this, bring it up to a sort of a boil, like a gentle simmer, put the lid on there and let that cook. Remember to keep stirring it though. It's been cooking with the lid closed for about 10 minutes now. Notice how it's all wilted down, the color has changed a bit, and on the bottom here you're going to see it starts releasing its own juices along with that coconut milk that we put in there. This is exactly where we want this to be at this point. We're going to continue cooking this with the lid closed. It's been 15 minutes now, and there's a lot of liquid on the bottom of the pot here. So what I want to do is burn off all that liquid. So my heat is up to a medium high now with the lid removed. We want to burn off all that sort of liquid there to get it nice and dry. The bananas are all cool now, so they're easier to handle, and all you're doing is pulling back on the skin, and it's just going to fall off the main meaty part of the banana itself. Just going to pull off any sort of, give it a quick scrape, any sort of remnants of skin that's on it. And we've got a perfectly cooked, peeled banana here. And this is one I did a little bit earlier. All I'm going to do is scrape off the skin a little bit, trim off the dark edges. And that's pretty much how you would peel the bananas. All we have to do now is cut the bananas maybe about 3/4 of an inch thick pieces, sort of on an angle, so you get nice long pieces like this. I'm just going to show you guys again. So lengthwise I'm just going on an angle, and these pieces here are ready to go into the pot. The callaloo's been cooking now for 20 minutes. We've gone ahead now and peeled all those banana, that cooked banana. So I'm just going to add it to the pot here. And give that a quick stir as well. We want to really mix everything together. So I'm just going to go ahead and give that a good stir. If you have more green bananas, but obviously with the amount of callaloo that we have here, we can certainly add more green bananas to this. Another 4 or 5 would be perfect. Here's where we're going to taste for salt now, because remember we didn't add any salt to the callaloo as it was cooking. I didn't call for any salt in the recipe either, in the ingredient list. The reason being, in majority of the times there's enough residual salt in that salted cod to flavor this the right way. So here's where you're going to taste it. Perfect. I don't need any more salt in here. This is perfect for me. But obviously your liking for salt will be a little bit different than mine. So do give it a taste and see if you need to add some more. I'm going to add that chopped tomato in there now and give that a nice stir. That tomato is going to brighten this up. It's all about being visual as well, right? Gonna give it a couple more minutes on high just to burn off any residual liquid, and this is good to go. And there it is, guys. The callaloo cooked down with that saltfish and the green bananas is all good to go now. The kitchen is smelling wicked. I can't wait to get into this. It's a nice summer's day here. I'm gonna go in the backyard and have some lunch. This here is my lunch. Hey, it smells amazing. It is gonna taste amazing. I do hope you guys give this recipe a try, and it's always so nice to have you guys here in my kitchen with me as we, you know what, we experiment and we do things from a Caribbean perspective. Chris here, CaribbeanPot.com. Remember to check out the website for more recipes at CaribbeanPot.com.